You are listening to Vitruvian Man with Jesse and Josh.
Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Josh.
Jesse, I'm here with Jesse.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
How was your week?
Well, it's just beginning.
Yeah. I guess more importantly, how was the last few days of your life?
Last few days were pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. It was beautiful. I got to take the bike out, which was great.
The motorcycle.
Motorcycle.
You have a beautiful motorcycle. What's it called again?
It's the BMW R9.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I'm super stoked about taking that out quite a bit this year.
Now, one part of me ever wants to get on a motorcycle again, but hey, I do admire the machinery and the craftsmanship, and I get it. So.
I'm glad I waited until I was as old as I was when I first got a bike, because I'd be fucking dead. Like, just straight up. Like, I waited, I think I was, well, it would have been 2008, because I got this ridiculous loan, like 0% for like 3 years, or so, for the life of the loan. And it was like, I've never seen anything like that since. So it was like 2008, economy had tanked. I'm like, fuck it, I'm getting a motorcycle. So I would have been like 34, 35, something like that. So if I'd gotten it any earlier, you wouldn't be talking to me now.
You would be smeared on the ground.
I'd be an eraser.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're alive.
Yeah, here we are.
Hooray for being alive.
And nobody get to listen to our lovely voices.
Your dulcet tones would be lost in society. So let's not have that.
Let's not do that.
Don't smack it on your motorcycle. So Josh, today, what is our subject today?
Metal. Mental.
To quote Craig, metal. Yes. So today we're going to talk about masculinity and metal. We're going to talk about masculinity in a lot of different aspects, but you thought, hey, let's bring it to my wheelhouse, which is metal.
Yeah, just as a general impression, metal seems like a fairly male-oriented scene. Although I do want to get into how it's changed since like the 70s.
Right, so I played some thrash metal for you before we started the show, and it was Exodus, and it was super violent.
Hell of violent.
It's called A Lesson in Violence, I guess the song is called. Back when we were young, it was like suddenly the horror movies we were watching were in music.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, I mean, obviously Black Sabbath, that's how they started. They were kind of a bluesy band, and they said, what if we made music that scared people?
God, did you ever listen to Earth?
Is that their... Yeah, that's
that was
their...
them before they became Black Sabbath.
Right, they have harmonicas.
Straight up fucking blues.
Were there horns, too?
I don't think there were horns, but it was like straight
bluesy.
Up blues, yeah.
Right. But then they said, what if we could scare people?
They did a pretty good job.
Yeah, exactly. So, I guess if we're looking at masculinity and metal, I think, much like social progress, the genre really has developed a lot. Definitely, I'm certain, let's say the first 20 to 30 years of the genre were super oriented towards men and aggressive. And, I'm not sure how many women were into that. Because, I mean, obviously, metal gets kind of like melodic and like Iron Maiden's bringing in like harmony and all that stuff.
Sure.
So I could see how that'd be more appealing. But it's funny, I was watching a great YouTuber doing an hour and a half long essay on men in metal and some of it toxic masculinity, but just talking about female roles and gender in metal.
Yeah.
And she kept saying things like representation of females in metal, and it's what the hard part is, if you look at the way that these bands dress, the things they're talking about, it is super violent sometimes and very aggressive. So it's not just as simple as a representation in metal. Meaning, I don't mean that there aren't women that aren't into dark stuff. Of course there are.
Sure.
Women who are into horror movies and into, I guess, violent images, you could say.
Yeah.
But I guess it kind of makes sense that it was male dominated only in that the way that the Three Stooges are male dominated. Right, women. I've met a lot of women who love the Three Stooges. Well, I met a lot of men that love the Three Stooges.
Yeah, for sure.
But yes, there's not a lot of early representation of women in metal because I'm not sure how interested they were.
So would you consider like the Runaways and Joan Jett, and would you consider that metal, or is that
It's
like
rock.
a different, like are we talking like a different type of metal?
I mean, that's rock, but that's a good example
Yeah.
because I think they faced a lot of misogyny.
Oh yeah.
Insane misogyny, and so that's the thing too. We really do have to. It's like you have to separate the scene versus record companies.
Yeah.
Obviously, record companies only see women as objects.
Right.
And so, Sinead O'Connor ended up cutting her hair all the way off because a record executive basically said you'd look better with long hair. She had like very short hair and she shaved it all off because that guy had to talk about her appearance.
R.I.P. dude.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
I loved her, man. She
Yeah.
was the best. But, basically, of course, there's plenty of young men that would never have a woman in their band in the 80s, right? Maybe the 70s,
yeah.
80s, they were sexist.
But it wouldn't even occur to them, right?
No.
There wouldn't even be an idea of having like a chick in your band. Like,
Right, and it probably depends on who you're hanging out with.
yeah.
6 Feet Under is a kind of a heavier, extreme band, and they have a chick, I shouldn't say chick, a lady playing bass. They're about as heavy as anybody. So it probably depends on who your friends are, who you're
Yeah.
growing up with. Because I guarantee some of these people obviously had women that were into metal. I think it's impossible though for women, or if basically a lot of metal bands, you'll see the woman is usually, if there's a woman in the band, she's a singer.
Right.
And if she's a singer, she's singing tonally, not let's say extreme lyrics. There's bands like Ginger that are super heavy, that are either all female or have female members, where they do get extreme.
With lyrically they get extreme, is that what you mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And they've got the heavy vocals, the heavy sounding.
So did they do the Cookie Monster thing?
Yeah. Some of these bands, where she's so heavy and aggressive, it's hard to tell that she's a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have easily been a man because she's doing that really great, hardcore extreme stuff.
Yeah.
So, I guess maybe as a way to do this, we could start going through some of the more interesting, let's say, epochs in this heavy music to kind of talk about.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to start.
Masculinity.
Then we can kind of get an idea of where it came from and
Right.
where it's going. Take it down the
Right.
road.
So, it's interesting to talk about Judas Priest, probably. That's one of the earlier, that's the new wave of British heavy metal. So, like, they, in the 70s.
What year was their first band? Was that?
So they started like in 74, 73.
Was that British Steel? Was that their first?
Well,
band?
no, it's more like Sad Wings of Destiny.
Okay.
And it's more kind of proggy.
Yeah.
It sounds a little more like Yes, maybe, or Genesis.
Okay.
But I think the funny thing is, turns out Rob Halford's gay. And he doesn't necessarily wear a lot of leather and spikes. But I think KK Downing, the guitar player, was like, we need to have a signature look. Because like Rush and a lot of these bands, they would wear like silk gowns. They'd wear things that were kind of dressy, but they weren't extreme or hardcore looking.
So it wasn't necessarily women in rock; it was cross-dressing in rock.
Right. So KK Downing says to Rob, "What if we, wore some, these leather goods and spikes and harnesses?" And I think he kind of talked him into it, and suddenly.
So did KK know that Rob was gay?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He knew, and. Rob was being in an extreme, kind of heavy music. He kept it quiet because a lot of homophobia, obviously,
that's bad
in rock and roll. But when I was talking about Rob, I think it's interesting to talk about. I learned about this thing. It's called the invisible gorilla. So, just a little tangent here. The invisible gorilla was a test that the psychologists did.
Oh, that fucking video!
Did you learn about the video?
Dude, I've watched that video, and the goddamn gorilla was invisible.
So he basically, in about 3 minutes, they have 3 people in white and 3 other people in black passing a basketball. And the question they said as an experiment is, if a gorilla walked through this video, would you notice? And of course, everyone said yes.
Well, okay, didn't they ask? They said follow the basketball, and at the end of it, they say, "Did you notice the gorilla?"
Right.
Or something like that.
Right, a lot of people did not.
And nobody, I pride myself in being pretty sharp on that kind of stuff. Totally fucking.
No, it's crazy, and of course, it's talking about brain science. It's talking
Yeah.
about our eyes not being reliable the way we think they are.
Memory,
as far as eyewitness, accounts of something.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like Rob Halford was the invisible gorilla. People in the gay scene would understand what some of these accoutrements would look like, the leather and the whips and
the motorcycle.
Yeah, he rode out on a Harley Davidson.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this is pre-internet, but like little old like 13 or 14-year-old me is going to see Judas Priest, and like suddenly you hear a Harley Davidson before the band even starts. And as the music starts, he rolls out, and it's like, wow, that was one of the coolest things I ever saw.
That's fucking metal.
Yeah, and yeah, super metal. Turns out super gay. And of course, I'm sure Robert Halford, when he did come out, faced some homophobia.
It was pretty bad. I do remember that.
In metal crowds, you are going to have lunkheads, right? You're going to have a certain segment of lunkheads. It's punk rock is, I think, similar.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe 10 to 20% of just, they might even be right-wingers, but they're there for the aggressive music.
Yeah.
And they might be misogynist. They might be not cool.
Right. It's people that don't like understand the lyrics, because I think most of the time, at least, correct me if I'm wrong here, but most of the time the lyrics are relatively progressive for the most part, not all of it. And people, I mean, it's like the Dropkick Murphys. There's those guys at the show that they didn't know what the fuck they were watching. They liked music, but they'd never heard any of the lyrics.
Didn't some MAGA people walk out of a Dropkick Murphys show that you saw? Or
and I was there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there for that, and they walked out, which fucking made everybody laugh.
That must have been great.
It was hilarious.
So cathartic.
Fuck that. Yeah, dude, oh my god. Because, he goes on his rants. Anyway, sorry.
It's good. No, it's true. And of course, when it comes to aggressive music, there's what's on the album and there's what's live.
Yeah.
You've been to a bunch of pits, both on some of the hardcore shows you've seen. I find they're pretty egalitarian. There are, if you go to it would basically, the legend was if you went to a Slayer pit, it was pretty scary, and it was. You'd see these things, maybe I'm good today. But a lot of like pits, there'll be women in the pits, there'll be skinny dudes, huge dudes, people of all kind of colors, and it's when it's going well, it's really egalitarian. It's really
super
mellow.
Supportive. Everybody's there to make sure you're having a good time. If you fall down, they go to pick you up.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's good like that.
And I think punk rock is similar.
Definitely.
Dead Kennedys wrote a song called "Nazi Punks Fuck Off" because Nazis started showing up at their shows.
Well, so I remember those bits back in the 80s.
Oh my god, that must have been crazy.
And you'd have this island of fucking skinheads in the middle, just throwing punches at anybody coming close to them. It was stupid. The fucking scene in San Francisco in the like mid to late 80s got dumb because of how many fucking Nazis there were around here. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely, and I just love they wrote a song called Nazi Punks Fuck Off. Like, not even like being thinly veiled reference to we don't want you here, basically.
No, just straight up, fuck off.
Yeah, and so anytime you're in a pit where someone's being a dick, it's usually the exception.
Yeah, I agree.
And they're going to get checked.
So is there any metal bands that have songs just basically, don't be a fucking dick in the pit?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah, and a lot of them will, in between songs, say, be cool. If you knock a guy down, he needs help, pick him up, just stuff like that. So I think the ones that love the music, they understand that the scene needs to keep going and be cool and be respectful and things like that.
Yeah.
Of course, now, that said, I'm sure there are plenty of women in minorities that would say they had a bad experience at a metal show.
For sure.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
We said there's lunkheads, right? So there's going to be some misogyny and some racism. I didn't see it, but of course that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But I guess there's bad actors in almost every genre.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems to me that in like, so I think that there's a lot of crossover between metal and punk rock. So it seems to me that in metal there is an egalitarianism that you don't find in, say, country music. You're going to find a lot more racist assholes in country music than you are in metal, for the most part. Not all the time, and it depends on the metal.
I think the thing about a metal show is like same thing with a punk show. When you go and see someone wearing a shirt of a band you love, you don't give a shit what color their skin is.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, he's into that band. I love that band. And you just start talking to them, and you have a new friend.
Yeah.
I think it's most of the time it's like that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
People bonding over their shared love for some of these bands.
Yeah.
At least maybe I'm an idealist, but I'd like to think that.
No, I've like just from the metal shows that I've been to and the punk rock shows I've been to, I feel that that's totally true. I know this is becoming a crossover. I'll step out of the punk rock scene.
Stop talking about punk rock, Josh. I'm sure I brought it up several times. It's not your fault. I was doing some research here, and it said that Kirk Hammett is the guitar player for Metallica, and they actually made a documentary called Some Kind of Monster where they were talking about their alcoholism and their they would have. I'm not sure they used the term toxic masculinity, but they would talk about the super aggressive nature of the band and how it wasn't always the greatest for their just it was hard sometimes to cope with. So I loved that. So I watched a 5-minute video where Kirk Hammett said that Metallica was fueled by toxic masculinity. And what I loved was that the comment section of that video is littered with insults about Hammett's masculinity. So he just said, it's been rough sometimes. It's been aggressive. We wrestle violently and like just sprinkled with comments about how he's not a man.
That is just reliable. It's reliably going to happen.
Like fans of Metallica and presumably Kirk Hammett going into shit on him about not being a man for just saying something that was true.
But stating the obvious.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I said they were lunkheads, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought another interesting story real quick to talk about was noted asshole Ted Nugent.
Oh, that motherfucker.
Who is a quote machine. I mean, if you want to find some shitty things to talk about, Ted Nugent is great for that.
God, he's such a douchebag.
So, a couple years ago, Joan Jett was listed in Rolling Stone's top 100 guitar players of all time.
I remember that.
The list is always controversial.
Sure.
Like, basically like Kurt Cobain will be number 11. I'm not positive Kurt Cobain would be pleased with that. To know that he was 11, I think he would probably count about 30 people ahead of him that were better guitar players.
At least.
So
he would be honest about it, definitely.
And the list is always going to be controversial. Yeah. But, Rolling Stone doesn't do everything right, but one of the things they did right was they put Joan Jett in there. And it's not so much that Joan Jett is a better guitar player than X, Y, or Z. It's that females are so unrepresented, and especially when it comes to guitar playing, right? There's a lot of great female vocalists we can think of, but
sure.
You can't name a lot of famous female guitar players.
Right.
So I think Rolling Stone did the right thing by putting her on that list. And I think they're making a statement that, we don't have a lot of women to choose from, and we are going to put some women in this list. To be cool about it, And so
I'm dreading this. Really.
Yeah.
I like, oh.
Yeah, so
what the fuck?
Basically, Ted Nugent, essentially he said a bunch of shitty things about why she shouldn't be on the list. And Joan Jett said, well, neither should he. Is that with the implication that he should be on the list instead of me? Well, that's just typical. It's what I've dealt with my whole life, being written off. Ted Nugent has to live with being Ted Nugent. He has to be in that body, so that's punishment enough. He's not a tough guy, he plays a tough guy.
He cosplays a tough guy, for sure.
In 1977, he told High Times magazine that he snorted a bunch of, meth or something, and then purposely tried to fail his test to get into the military, so...
Oh, no. He shit his pants.
Okay, so that's the part I had a hard time vetting. He said a bunch of things in this High Times interview, including that he shit his pants to get out of being in the military.
Right.
30 years later, he recants all of it, which is like...
Of course he does.
Yeah, that's...
So he's openly admitting to be a fucking... an unpatriotic coward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
he's playing the patriot all the way to the fucking end.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a douchebag.
Yeah. So obviously Ted Nugent, an awful person, a mean person, just not a good person at all. But I guess...
Can we get a counterpoint?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the clip of Lemmy from Motorhead railing against racists?
Oh, cool. No, I haven't heard that. Can you sum it up?
I'll see. Yeah, basically, a black kid wrote in and said, I really like metal, but all these people tell me that I can't listen to it because I'm black. And he fucking went off on a tear. He's all, don't you fucking listen to those motherfuckers. He's like,
nice.
Metal is for everybody. Metal is not about color. It is about a feeling, and if you've got that feeling, you are metal. It was that kind of... It's a great clip, and it gave me... I fucking love Lemmy.
Sure.
But this made me love him all that much more.
And Lemmy, he's passed away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always when an old timer says something cool.
Yeah. That's
just so pleasing to me. It's one thing for someone younger than us to be progressive.
Sure.
And you hope for that. It's when the old timers come through.
The old guys that are the heart and soul of it. They laid the foundation for everybody else. They were progressive then, but they're still progressive now. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain, I remember once said something about if you're homophobic and misogynistic, don't go to our shows.
You have no business being here.
Yeah, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
And to me, it's never... You're going to lose fans when you make a statement that's either political or social.
Yeah.
And so I respect it. You don't have to, you could say nothing,
Right.
and then the assholes will keep showing up. Or you can say, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
And they're going to lose ticket sales, and they're going to lose, swag sales. So.
Who cares?
No, of course. Of course. I still respect it, though.
No, I do too.
Cheers to the people that are willing to do that.
Well, I'm kind of curious as to how has the scene progressed? And I know that it's a big scene and there's a lot of different types of metal that we're talking about here. But, like we were talking before we hit the record, there's the early 70s metal.
Right.
And then that kind of moved into the hair metal of the 80s. And then the thrash metal of the middle 80s. And then into all the other stuff that came after that. How has a female representation changed in the bands, but also in the fandom? Like what's been the progress there, if there is any progress?
Hair metal is a bizarre thing when you think about it. Like, so thrash metal precedes hair metal.
Oh, I guess it does.
Yeah. So thrash comes out of punk.
It was the crossover.
They were into
right?
punk. Like you'll see Slayer has like Dead Kennedy sticker on their guitar.
Yeah.
A lot of Metallica were definitely into punk rock. So so that's the early part of like extreme metal. The funny thing about hair metal is this thing that's kind of heavy and aggressive. Suddenly, men are wearing makeup and women's lingerie,
and it seemed like
they're teasing their hair,
and it seemed like the tempo dropped.
It
wasn't as fast as metal that came before and after. Like Rat, dude. I have to say, I love Rat.
When I was a kid, that was so great for me. Yeah,
I've listened to it like not too long ago, and it holds up. It's fucking just as
it's cozy. Awesome. I think Matt Groley and Paul Rust from the Matt Groley and Paul Rust show, whatever their podcast is, they talk about coziness, right? Yeah. I think hair metal is kind of cozy, right? Like it's bubblegum.
It's bubblegum.
It's totally. Like a Sour Patch Kid. There's no nutrition in it, but it's fun to enjoy.
It's fun to chew on every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is bizarre, though. You're right, because the tempo slows down. I think, obviously, some smart record executives saw the potential in here, right? If we're only selling these records to men, and, Metallica and some of these bands were largely selling to men, if we make this stuff, slow it down, like you said, get some harmony in there, I think they smartly realized that they could capitalize on. I think a lot of women started getting into metal because they really made a product that was more palatable.
So do you think it changed the demographic?
I think it did.
Listening demographic.
Yeah, I think if you would go to like a Whitesnake show or a Rat show or Cinderella show,
Whitesnake, the chicks are coming for that dude.
Yeah, you get your Coverdale, good-looking dude.
Yeah.
So I think once it became more melodic and. I don't even want to say mellower because it still had an edge to it,
right.
but definitely they slowed it down, like you said. And I think that really did. Obviously that's when MTV was playing 1 billion hair metal videos every day. It became a gigantic commodity.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then how? So then that segued. So would you consider like grunge part of the metal scene, or is that its own fucking thing?
I mean, it's certainly heavy, right? So grunge is almost like it's like the reaction to hair metal.
Definitely.
So you have so hair metal is this excessive, ridiculous thing that's all lipstick and pomp and all that stuff, and grunge is like, fuck that.
Those fucking guys, man.
It's so great. I mean, it's so
They
bizarre.
single-handedly destroyed the fucking ozone layer.
Yeah, exactly. All that hairspray.
The fucking Aquanet.
Yeah, they say that cows and animal farming are the cause of global warming. I disagree. I think it's hairspray.
It's hair bands.
Yeah, it's the hair metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think scientists, 1,000 years from now, will be talking about that. So
like back to demographics. So what's the scene? What's the demographics change been since then?
Well, I do think I don't think that. So even though grunge is heavy, I would say it's heavy. It still has elements that are melodic.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah, Pearl Jam and Soundgarden.
Yeah,
Nirvana was a huge seller of records. I think definitely still more accessible to young women. As far as like, it's not black metal, it's not extreme metal. It's something you can sing along to. Stone Temple Pilots, you can sing along to that stuff. Yeah. So I think it definitely was, even though it was a reaction to hair metal in that it was cooler, way cooler, and it wasn't meant to be wearing costumes, right? They're just wearing jeans and shirts. They don't care about any of that stuff.
It was that lumberjack aesthetic. The skinny lumberjack aesthetic.
Yeah. Characterized in that great movie Singles. Did you ever see Singles?
I haven't seen that movie for such a long
time. Oh yeah, it was fun. Is that Cameron Crowe?
God,
I don't know, but it's basically a romantic comedy set in Seattle grunge era. Yeah. So yeah.
Was it Janine Garofalo in that?
Oh, I think so. There's a lot of great actors in that one.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people in that one.
Yeah, there's Matt Dillon.
I fucking love Matt Dillon.
Did you see Drugstore Cowboy?
It's one of my favorite movies. Still, that's one of my favorite movies.
The hat in the bed.
You put the fucking hat in the bed. Oh my god.
And that's like when you see a movie once and you don't remember any of it, that doesn't bode well.
Yeah.
And you see Drugstore Cowboy once, which I saw once 35 years ago.
Yeah.
I still love that movie.
I love the little touch when he's robbing the drugstore.
Yeah.
And he's shuffling all the pill bottles, and he's looking, and he picks up the laxative. He's all throws it in the bag.
He just has a resigned sigh. Guess I'm taking this too.
It's like, what you do?
He's great.
Yeah.
And Matt Dillon's wonderful. Should have been in more movies. I guess he was in a few, but
he's in a ton actually.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think was like Gus Van Zant's best era. Like when he did that, and he did the one with
My Own Private Idaho.
My Own Private Idaho, which was actually that was the movie where I was like, oh, fucking Keanu can act.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he didn't really do much acting after that. I mean, he doesn't really act in John Wick, but I love John Wick. But that was like he actually acted in that. And wasn't that River Phoenix too? That was a good.
I think so.
Movie. Yeah.
My favorite Keanu is Parenthood. He's great in Parenthood. Do you remember that?
I don't think I've seen that.
Parenthood. So like that's. It's kind of a light comedy.
Is that Steve Martin?
Yeah, but Steve Martin. It's got the guy from Amadeus. Just playing a really wonderful little role.
Yeah.
A bunch of good acting in that one, like Jason Robards or something. But Keanu is awesome in that. He's just playing like a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old. But I always say with actors, don't make them go out of their comfort zone too far.
Right.
Cameron Diaz is in Gangs of New York. She's hated in that movie, but that was a casting mistake. That was her mistake.
Well, it's also like I think that directors can make good actors out of bad actors, and they can also put somebody in there that will make the role horrible.
Yeah, famously, Sophia Coppola ended up in Godfather 3 because Winona Ryder didn't do it. And, no, she's a good director, but not a great actor.
Not a great actor.
So that was a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, back on track. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
My bad. Metal. Metal.
So we're going through. Okay. So we're through grunge. So and we're picking up more of the ladies.
I think so.
As fan base.
So
that's also when things like L7 came out.
Right. All female.
Cat Power. That was the Riot Girl scene, which I fucking loved. I wish that had gone farther. The Riot Girl scene was...
So L7's part of that?
Yeah. Cat Power, L7. Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
So is Riot Girl like just hard rock? Is that normally what typifies it, or...?
It was feminist metal.
Right.
Feminist metal, feminist punk rock.
Right.
So you get people like Nina Hagen kind of slipped into that.
Nice.
Lydia Lunch kind of slipped in there too.
So heavier music that was meant to be accessible to women too, meant to be for all
to rep for women, and I think it kind of got co-opted later on and lost some of its edge, which is why it kind of didn't last. But man, when it was hitting in the early mid 90s, there was some good fucking music coming out.
Absolutely. L7 was cool.
Shit list.
Yeah, I never saw them, but I always liked them. And it was cool to have that all-female band. You just don't have... Yeah. It still is a novelty at this point.
God, they're playing in Pomona.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Oh, are they headlining?
Well, they're not headlining. But
that's that big festival.
One of the million bands that are playing.
Yeah. They're cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and I remember I didn't know a lot about the Runaways when I was a kid, but I loved Lita Ford. Lita Ford ended up being a shredder. Yeah. So in an area dominated by men, guitar playing. Lita Ford came out of the Runaways, even though the Runaways weren't necessarily great musicians, they were just doing medium tempo rock.
Yeah.
Lita Ford ended up being a real shredder, and I thought that was cool. That was at the time the only one I could name that was in hard rock or heavy metal that could play like that.
Yeah.
Because women are so excluded, I think, from being musicians. They're not excluded from being singers, but they're I think definitely excluded from being musicians.
It's a lot of
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now this is an aside about Lita. Do you remember her on Happy Days?
Oh my God, really?
She was Pinky Tuscadero. She was
Wait a second, I forgot
girlfriend.
that. So she wasn't Leather Tuscadero?
Pinky Tuscadero, that was her name.
Do you remember Leather Tuscadero?
Yeah, what was that?
I don't know. Cousin or something. Wait a second, slow this down here. Are you telling me that Lita Ford was Pinky Tuscadero?
She was Fonzie's girlfriend.
I totally didn't know that.
Yeah, it's so dope. I still remember that.
So that was before the Runaways?
No, she was in the Runaways. That was height of the Runaways. So this would have been probably 76, 77.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's funny. I thought I knew everything about Happy Days, and here you are, I get some Lita Ford. That's great. Oh, it's fantastic. Pinky Tuscadero.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So I think we started out by watching a Exodus video, and then I showed you a Gojira, a progressive French kind of death metal band. And what I was pointing out to you was like, there's a guy in the audience wearing a banana suit,
yeah.
and there's a guy in the audience wearing a Pokemon outfit.
Yeah.
And I guess what I meant to show you that for is I think with society progressing towards social justice, I think music has too, a bit.
So now with Gojira, because I know you've gone to some of their shows, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what's the demographic in the crowd? Is there women out there?
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's still, super heavy.
You got to figure male dominated.
Sure.
But is there's women?
Yeah, but I saw them in Berkeley, and Berkeley's almost always a good mix of genders.
Yeah.
So I mean, in the pit they had giant football players from Cal Berkeley, which was terrifying. Dude. But they had absolutely women in the pit too.
Yeah.
So they were. I think it always depends on where you are too. Berkeley, you're going to see a lot of mix of people, no matter what kind of show it is.
Now, would you throw Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum into the metal scene?
They're not metal; they get heavy though.
They're fucking that's some hard ass shit.
Yeah, there was stuff that got heavy.
Okay, and I was just curious because that seemed like a pretty good rep for that was a good mix of crowd.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, had some art students.
It was definitely the artiest fucking thing I'd been to in such a long time.
I mean, my favorite local black metal band was in the audience.
Oh.
So, they definitely have a crowd that's eclectic, right?
Okay.
You've got your art majors, but you've also got your black metal bands that are into them too.
Yeah, they're technically amazing.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
That was unbelievable. You guys should go check out Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum.
So dope.
Yeah. You may not like the first song. Try the second and the third one. It's weird. It's really weird.
Eventually, you'll like something.
Yeah. Go Bodella. If you're Go.
I love Go Bodella. Those guys are great. Isn't he Armenian?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you're saying that right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And metal, obviously, it's probably as popular now as it ever was, which sounds crazy to say, but there are a lot of splintering, I think, of genres, and that's helped.
Yeah.
So you have a thing called baby metal, which is the way the Monkees were put together as a supergroup just to sell records. Baby metal were like Japanese K-pop stars.
Oh, that's the name of a band.
Or I shouldn't say K-pop. But yeah, baby metal is not a genre, it's a band.
Oh, God.
Where they took a bunch of pop kind of like personalities and
I think I saw
got them to play heavy music.
Some weird thing where fans of Metallica or somebody was talking shit about baby metal, and they're like, fuck you, they're harder than you'll ever be, So I was like, I'd never heard of them, and I wasn't sure if that was a band or if it was a subgenre of metal, but dope. Yeah,
Ghost, have you heard Ghost?
No, I haven't heard Ghost.
You're not missing much.
I've seen the
it's anthemic.
Toys.
It's metal adjacent.
It seems like they look way harder than they are.
Oh yeah, they look like a Norwegian black metal band.
Yeah.
They sound like Kiss,
but which is not necessarily a selling point.
Did you see that Gene Simmons, one of the worst people? Gene Simmons said something like, essentially, there are no iconic bands anymore. And he might have been talking about specifically metal and hard rock, but basically he said that we haven't had iconic bands in several years, and it's so funny because imagine that ego. First of all, you have no idea what people are listening to.
Right.
however old he is, 73-year-old Gene Simmons is not on the cutting edge of listening to new metal bands.
He hasn't got his finger on the pulse.
So number one, he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And second of all, if he heard a band that is acknowledged as iconic and great, would he even have the courage to admit it? I don't think so.
No, he's a scared.
Just, yeah. People love Kiss. I am sorry to shit on Kiss, but they are one of the worst bands of all time.
It's pretty bad. They were another band that was like that should have been way fucking harder if they were going to look like.
Well, yeah, I mean they look like demons.
Yeah,
and they sound like a bar band. Yeah, there's nothing heavy about that.
The song Beth, do you remember?
Oh God, how could you say that?
And I think that I saw it on fucking Solid Gold. I think that they were on Solid Gold, and was it Ace Frehley sang that one? I think
something like that.
It was like they cut to the very end, or at the end they cut him tight. It's fucking that golden glow, and
oh my God,
a single tear rolls down.
No way.
Oh, it's so good, dude.
Of Ace Frehley's. Seriously?
Yeah, I mean it was like Visine before the camera cut it, but fucking it was so bad. It's solid fucking gold.
Music videos, dude.
That was even solid gold.
Have you seen? I know, but just that era of filmed music.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Pina Colada song video?
No, I have not.
All right, we're gonna watch that when this is over. We're just gonna hit stop on the recording, and I'm gonna make you watch the Pina Colada video. Guy's got a sweater and gold rimmed glasses and a watch, and he looks like he's showed up at his job as an accountant, but he's singing the Pina Colada song. It's just insane. The things that people would wear in these videos. Like, you understand this is meant to sell your music, right? And you're wearing a sweater?
I remember when I was a kid and I lived in Australia. And so I was like 5, so this would have been in the early 70s. And they had music videos, and I never saw such a thing. And I didn't, when I came back, I never saw anything, until the 80s. But fucking ABBA, Rod Stewart, and just all this cheesy ass fucking music. Oh my God. But I did go back in like 1980, and they had Midnight Oil doing a music video.
Oh, cool.
And it was punk as fuck.
Oh, was it?
It was punk.
Because I only know they're like breakthrough record. I didn't know they were punk.
They were. He was wearing a dress.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, it was
nice.
It was eye opening, for being 10 and going back to Australia.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as far as like heavy music, I think it's definitely progressed in a good way in that you'll have a band like Avatar. There's, the movie Avatar, but there's a Swedish heavy band called Avatar. And in one song, it'll go from unbelievably grindcore kind of heavy sounding to the next thing you know, the singer is singing melodically and prancing around the stage in kind of a gender neutral clown outfit.
And is this the same song, or is it shifted
within the same song? They kind of like do a lot of blending of things, and I think unencumbered by what metal used to be, which is that it's got to be aggressive, it's got to be super manly.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a thing anymore, and I think Marilyn Manson is partly responsible. People would say maybe Alice Cooper, but Marilyn Manson, let's pretend he wasn't a piece of shit right now. Let's just talk about his influence.
That, yeah.
Marilyn Manson had that album, I think it was Mechanical Animals, where he's got he appears naked and he's got appears to be breasts.
Yeah.
Kind of non-gendered in some ways, and of course the Walmart freaked out, wouldn't sell it.
I remember the rumors flying around. Yeah, man, he had a rib taken out so he could.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn it, dude.
That's crazy shit. But anyway, I do think the cool thing is just this super masculine, aggressive kind of like angry shit isn't necessarily always a thing. You've got bands that are funny. You've got bands that are talking about things that are like Gojira talks about the environment in their songs.
Yeah.
So they're not talking about cutting someone's throat, right? They're talking about other things. So I think it's become a lot more inclusive. Heavy music has.
So is that a subgenre, or do you think that's overall?
Obviously, there's
because Norwegian fucking death metal's always going to be about fucking killing people.
Sure.
Right?
Or at least, yeah, exactly. Did you know they had one of the most important places in Norway for black metal is this little kind of shop that had like tape cassettes that people would trade, and it has paraphernalia. It just burned to the ground the other day.
Oh no!
So I just thought it was the most metal thing ever. The black metal museum in Norway burning down to the ground.
Was it arson?
You gotta hope. Yeah, Mayhem. Mayhem's famous for they burned down a church or two, and then the bass player stabbed one of the band members to death.
Right.
And I guess my question is, what do you have to do to get kicked out of that band? It's like, oh, let's see here. I'm looking at your resume here. So you burned a church and you murdered one of your band members. Hired. Yeah.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Yeah. So, but back to the subject. I do think that there's a lot more avenues now for fitting people into where they would be excluded before.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of band. It's not uncommon to have a female drummer or a female bass player now, where it was pretty rare, I think, in the 80s, in the 90s.
Yeah, through the. I mean, even with the Riot Girl scene, it was all girl bands. It wasn't like mixed bands. It wasn't. Like that.
Yeah, but I think that as sexism has decreased, I think people can obviously acknowledge that women can play easily as good as men can.
Definitely.
So you'll have female shredders and, not just singers, you'll have female bass players and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's become a little more egalitarian, which is nice.
That is nice.
Yeah. So I think maybe it definitely had its roots in really, really bad behavior, and I'm sure exclusionary and possibly racist, unfortunately, due to some of the listeners.
Yeah.
But I think that was the fans. I don't. There are Nazi-centric heavy music, right? There's Crowbar, was like a heavy band that was Nazi-centric.
Oh, that's too bad. Because I liked Crowbar. I didn't know that they were fucking Nazis.
I think I'm saying that right.
No, you're probably right. But I remember going, oh, this is fucking.
I don't want to speak out of turn. But I guess I meant to say, without mentioning Crowbar, so I don't want to defame them if they're not Nazis. But obviously you had music that was meant to be, catering to Nazis.
Yeah.
But in general, I think a lot of people, like you said, are not writing shit like that in their music. There's plenty of lunkheads, obviously, writing some of that music too.
Yeah.
But I think it's swinging in the right direction, so that's good.
Where do you see it going from here? Just pure inclusivity?
I just think, it's since it's as popular as it's ever been, and since there's as much interesting diversion of styles, I think it's just going to keep kind of blossoming that way. I think people can find their niches now.
Yeah.
If they want symphonic power metal, there's symphonic power metal. If they want symphonic black metal, there's symphonic black metal. So I think there's a genre for everybody. I think that really helps kind of bring people in, both women and men.
Yeah.
So.
And all those in between.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm running out of steam here, Josh.
I think we covered.
What do you think?
I think we got it figured out.
All right, we solved masculinity. Every week we solve something. This week we solve masculinity.
Put it to bed.
But I have a couple of things we want to do before we go here.
That's right. So we're going into a new segment.
We have a new segment here, and it's called Asshole of the Week.
Asshole of the Week.
This week's asshole, actually, I've been saving this since September. So September this happened, and I thought, we were talking about doing this show in September, and I thought, this is the first guy I want to talk about. So we're going to talk about Jan Winter. Jan Winter, who co-founded Rolling Stone magazine, was also a co-founder of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he's been removed from the Hall's board of directors after making disparaging comments towards black and female musicians, and he apologized within hours. So the best part is his apology. So his book comes out, and it's all white men. It's Bob Dylan. I can't even remember them all, but he's only interviewing white men.
Right.
Not a coincidence, because he's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
So this is him asked why he didn't interview women or black musicians.
Yeah.
So that's his chance to say something smart.
Dude,
this is what he said instead.
Bad.
It's not that they're inarticulate, although go have a deep conversation with Grace Slick or Janis Joplin. Please be my guest. Joni Mitchell was not a philosopher of rock and roll. She didn't, in my mind, meet the test, he told the Times.
He's such an asshole.
So
dude.
women and black people aren't articulate.
And he gives you 3 women.
I'm sure Janis Joplin has amazing things to say about music industry.
Well,
I mean, I never met her, but
right? Yeah.
I just...
I mean, Grace Slick back in the day, she was sharp.
Of course.
But you going bad on Joni? Just like, even if you don't like her music, she's got a lot of good things to say.
And she's known to be very intelligent.
Yeah.
Let's assume that's bullshit.
I mean, is he talking shit about Patti Smith too? What a motherfucker, man.
He says, of black artists, Stevie Wonder, genius, right? I guess when you use a word as broad as masters, the fault is using that word. Maybe Marvin Gaye or Curtis Mayfield. I mean, they just didn't articulate at that level. So black people are inarticulate.
Yeah, it's like all the tropes are just fucking trundled out, dude.
And again, we're not talking 49 years ago or 75 years ago. Jan Wenner wrote this in a book 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. I remember when that came out. I was like, what a dong.
He's defending what he wrote, and he calls black people inarticulate. Dude, like, I don't think you know what apology is. Real quick here, he says, just for public relations sake, maybe I should have gone and found one black and one woman artist to include here that didn't measure up to that same historical standard, just to avert this kind of criticism.
One black.
So he's saying he should have scraped the barrel to find a black person and a woman that could at least meet the minor minimum for articulate behavior.
What a turd,
wow,
dude.
Oh my God.
So where is he now? Like, is he just disappeared? I mean, he was
marching in a Klan rally?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's voting for Trump, right? I mean, that's got to be happening.
I'm shocked. Just unbelievable.
No, I'm shocked too. Like, he fucking started Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
And I remember reading his biography back in 80s, 90s, whenever.
Jan Wenner's?
Yeah. And just impressed with all the people that he'd met, everything that he'd done, and now this.
Well, I think I've said enough. Asshole of the week, I think it's no doubt about it.
Asshole of the week.
So Josh, we have a phone call.
Oh shit.
We asked people to call us on their shit, and someone did.
Okay.
So I'm going to play it for you right now.
All right.
Hi, Jesse and Josh. It's Mary here. First-time listener, first-time caller. You said that you were open to having people call you out on your shit. And that's what I'm here to do. I am a bleeding heart liberal, and I always feel concern when we criticize others for things that aren't about their politics or their views or the potential harm that they're doing to our culture and our society. In this case, I'm specifically talking about Jordan Peterson and his addiction. And I think that's not a strike against a person. I think if I want people to be treated with compassion and understanding for the struggles that they have in this life, then I have to extend that to everybody and not just people who share my views. So I'm calling you out on that. I want you to go after Jordan Peterson for some of the hateful and ridiculous things that he spews, but his addiction is off limits in my book. Keep up the good work, guys.
All right, thank you for the call.
Okay. Thanks,
what do you
Mary.
think? I'll let you respond first because you said it.
So absolutely. So I feel like the way that Jordan Peterson treats people regarding their self-control opens him up to critique on that level. And I get it. I do understand not going after people for their addictions. But I also feel like at some point, if you are criticizing people for their self-control, their ability to keep their house in order, which he likes to say a lot, you're opening yourself up to criticism on that level. Ordinarily, though, Mary, I absolutely agree with you, and I know people that have addiction problems. I've known people that have died because of their addiction problems. I understand that, but that's why I feel all right about going after Jordan on that one. It's because of his lack of compassion towards people with the same problem. But noted. And I'll try and do better.
Okay, I didn't think about that at the time when you said it. So it's not just that basically, essentially, if he's judging other people for not having their shit together, he's not acknowledging that he had his own addiction problem. And obviously, if you're addicted to something, you're out of control. Right?
Agreed.
You're not in control.
He yes, that's correct. And he's never really copped to the fact that he lost control. There was never any kind of an acknowledgement that, maybe there are people with this problem. At least that I've heard. Maybe there's something out there that would prove me wrong, but everything that I've seen from him revolving around that, that he's opened himself up to criticism on that level.
Yeah, I have seen some videos of him interacting with audience members, and he is really condescending.
Yeah.
He's judgmental and condescending, and I guess obviously we would have more compassion for him if he wasn't that way.
Absolutely. No, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And he judges people for the actions that he does. He judges people, and I think that opens him up for criticism.
But anyway, we do appreciate the call.
Absolutely.
We did ask people to call, so
Yep.
Thank you for calling, and please do keep calling, everybody.
Yeah.
The number will be in the show notes, so feel free to call in anytime, and we can use your voice in the air or not, but either way, let us know, if you disagree, and that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Mary.
Did we cover everything?
I think we're there.
All right, brother, you have a good week.
Yeah, you
see
too.
you next week.
Oh, see you on Friday.
Oh, that's right, we're going to a show on Friday, yeah. Yeah, helmet and Cro-Mags, baby. Going to be awesome.
Gonna have to work out to get in that pit.
All right, man.
All right.
See you next week.
Rock on.
Take care.
You have been listening to The Trivial Man. If you'd like to get a hold of us, you can either call us at 415-484-8841 or send us an email at thetriviumpod@gmail.com.